Hey everyone, welcome to episode 9 of Make Moments Matter, a music education podcast, a place where I share lesson ideas, songs, games, and inspiring things for your elementary music classroom. My name is David Rao, and I am the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and a variety of other platforms. Today, I'm planning on talking with you about one of a bunch of really great folk songs to start using around this time of year, around this spring season. And the song I'm going to share a little bit about today is called John the Rabbit, or maybe you know it by another name where John is called something else. There are a lot of different variations of this song, but it's a fun little rabbit song. We'll get to that in just a second. Before I get into John the Rabbit, I wanted to share a quick teacher tip that's worked really well in my classroom. I often post these on my blog or Instagram so you can sort of see them in action. And I usually try and tag them with something like Teacher Tip or Insta Music Ed to sort of help you find those more quickly. And the one I want to tell you about today, I've actually blogged about it. It's sort of, well, it's sort of silly using snowballs in your classroom, but not actually snowballs. These are paper snowballs, and I wanted to share this because a week ago I went to the Michigan chapter of, the local Michigan Kodály chapter, and saw a great workshop by really not a Kodály person, but a Feierabend person. And we talked a lot about steady beat, and we talked about rhythm, and there were just a ton of really great activities to get students to feel the beat, to feel the rhythm, to try keeping a beat in a lot of different places. And it made me think of this activity I'd done with students with what I call snowballs. Now, you can do a lot of great things with beat, like if you have little Beanie Babies, or if you have, little instruments or shakers or whatever. In my first year of teaching, I was trying to find something new and different for kids to do to keep these activities sort of fresh, of keeping the beat in different places and doing stuff. And I was just out of ideas. And I didn't have a budget, and I didn't have a lot of resources. And a friend of mine in the district was talking about her snowball activity. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. She pulled out a basket, and it was just crumpled balls of computer paper. And I was blown away. I had never thought about it and about using something like that. And the kids love it because I make it like this big deal with students, like, ooh, we're almost out of snowball season. Well, not in Michigan. Here in Michigan, it snowed this last week. So everybody else enjoy your spring breaks. We're enjoying it with, blizzard weather. But I know it's still snowy in a lot of places in the country. And so with kids, you could say, ooh, I brought these snowballs inside. They are magic snowballs. They don't melt. And I use my magic on them, so they're not going to melt. You can use them in class. I'm so excited, but you got to make, promise that you keep your snowball in your own space. If if it gets into your neighbor's space or whatever, you're going to lose your snowball, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's all classroom management stuff. But when you get into actually using the snowballs, when you pull them out, kids are like, those aren't snowballs. And I'm like, yeah, no, they are. They're magic, so they look a little different, but they're real snow. It seriously is. Kindergartners and first graders love the idea that you're trying to hawk, that these are snowballs, and they're not. But anyway, so I bring these paper balls out for kids, and we can do just a million things with them. So you can use them to keep the steady beat. You can have the kid hold the snowball and bounce it on their knee. They can bounce it on their head. They can pat it. I've done a lot of different things with students where you can pass it from hand to hand. That's very difficult. You can have them use both hands on it. You can have them do it on their right knee for a while and then do it on their left knee for a while. You can have them, hit it on the ground. You can have because it's just paper. I mean, you can do things where you may not want to do it with other things because you're afraid it'll break or whatever. So we do some sensory things too. Like I have them crumple the snowball, not in time, just out of time, not for a steady beat activity, just something to go in between. We do steady beat, we do something sensory, we do steady beat, we do something sensory, just to keep things moving along and feel different for the kids. So some of those sensory things, you can crumple the paper ball, you can smack the paper ball, you can lay it out flat and try and smooth it out as much as you can, and then crumple it up again. Oh, they love that. So there are just a ton of different things you can do with it. When you're keeping the beat, it's nice that you can smack it. You can have kids do things together where one holds it and the other one taps it or whatever. I mean, but because it's just paper, you don't have to feel like you're nervous, like it's going to be broken. So some extensions with things that I've done about this. So I've done it with just white paper. And honestly, I don't like take a ream of paper and crumple it up. I go to the recycle bin in the teacher's lounge, and I make sure that it doesn't have like grades or names or whatever on it. But you know, all of those pieces of paper that like somebody's trying to copy a worksheet and they copy it wrong or whatever, and they throw it in the recycle bin. Well, I take it because they're not going to use it. So I use that paper to crumple up and use for my snowballs, and I put it in a little laundry basket, and I've got probably, 60 of them in there. So if something goes wrong or one gets snot on it or whatever, I just throw it away, I mean, because that's the nice thing about these. You don't have to worry about cleaning up. Just get a new one. The other fun thing that I've done is that there was a teacher who maybe was trying to print out a bunch of notes to send home to parents about an upcoming concert. I am the teacher, and I maybe put the wrong date on the note, and I had printed off like for the whole grade level. So there are like 100 of these bright orange notes to go home that have the wrong date on them. So instead of just recycling them, I crumpled them up, and then around Halloween time, I've got orange, not snowballs, like call them little pumpkin balls. There was another time where there was a teacher who did something, it was like for an open house, and she had all these colorful signs and she was just going to throw them away. And I was like, no, you've got like 12 different colors of paper. I'll take them. And I crumpled them up. So I've got a bunch of these in a bunch of different colors. And you can use them all white. You can use all one color. You can use multiple colors. It gives you some opportunity and some freedom to do different things. So snowballs, try it out. You can get paper from anywhere. Don't go buy nice paper. Just go to the recycle bin or tell, other teachers in the building, like, hey, if you have colorful paper that you're not using or you've used and you're going to recycle, don't recycle it, save it for me. You can find that in a lot of different places, and just, see what you can do. There are times where we'll roll it around in our hands, or we can even toss these snowballs, or you can then use these for games or whatever. I mean, and it's also fun at the end of the activity. I'll say like, okay, if you've got a green snowball, come and toss it in the basket. Or if we have like an extra minute at the end of class, I'll let them stand on a line and toss the ball into the basket or something instead of just dropping it in. I mean, there's a ton of things you can do with this. So beat balls, snowballs. I think you'll have fun with it. I think your students will too. Well, I'm excited to share with you some lesson ideas that I have for the song John the Rabbit. I think this is the absolute perfect time to pull out these lessons because the song John the Rabbit, you'll hear in just a second, is about gardens, and it's about a rabbit who messes up the garden. And this is the time where people are really starting to think about gardens again. A lot of homeroom classrooms are talking about planting or life cycle or things like that. So this really sinks in many times with what kids are doing in their homeroom with their grade level teacher. I also think this is great around this time of year because we're getting close to Easter. So again, a lot of games that you might have a Beat the Bunny rhythm game or something like that, or Clip the Carrot or whatever. You may already have a lot of games that involve rabbits. And so this is a great rabbit song to throw in there in the mix. Plus also, it's spring. I mean, this is the time where I talk a lot about animals in general. A lot of the songs that I do, I do songs about birds hatching, or I do Here Comes a Bluebird Flying Through the Window, or we might do songs about buds sprouting, spring is the perfect time to bring in animal songs, especially if it's about young animals or something. In fact, I created a whole set of songs on my Teachers Pay Teacher store of folk songs that are barnyard animal songs, because I bring out barnyard animal songs in the spring a lot of the time because it's just a great time to talk about animals. Kids are thinking about animals. It's within the life cycle of our world, this is a lot of time when animals are being born. So it's a great time to bring in animal songs. John the Rabbit specifically is one of my favorite animal songs, especially for younger kids, K1. And I first heard this song a few years ago at a state music conference. I don't know how I had not heard it before growing up, but there are always those songs that people are like, oh yeah, that's totally a standard. And I'm like, I've never, ever heard this before. That was me at this conference. Like, I know nothing. I am Jon Snow because I know nothing. So anyway, Jill Trinka, this great Kodály teacher, presenter, sang the song, and I was just so enamored with it. And I came home and did some research and learned a little bit more about it. So this is a fantastic little song. It's a folk song. Kids have been singing about it for a long, long, long time. And it's a fun little song because it's a call and response. So you, the teacher, get to sing to the students and they have a little response. There are a couple different ways to do this, but I'm just going to sing you the version that I learned, and then I'll tell you about a little bit about the variations. So here is just a quick a sing through of the song in case you've never heard it like I had not heard it. This will give you a little idea of how the song goes. Oh, John the Rabbit, yes ma'am, got a mighty, mighty habit, yes ma'am, jumping in my garden, yes ma'am, cutting down my cabbage, yes ma'am, my sweet potatoes, yes ma'am, my fresh tomatoes, yes ma'am, and if I live, yes ma'am, to see next fall, yes ma'am, I ain't gonna have, yes ma'am, no cotton at all, yes ma'am. So, I love this song for just a ton of reasons. First of all, I think it's so easy for kids to pick up and do the response. They get that there's a clear thing that the teacher sings and then a clear thing that they sing. So if I'm teaching this to students, I might say, did you hear a part that comes back a couple times? And it's like, yes, of course, the yes ma'am, obviously the yes ma'am, over and over and over. So the kids get to sing that part, and it's nice too because that's the tonic. It's it's do, so they get to sing it over and over and over. And it's also fun because you, the teacher, you get to go below and above and all the way around to do, and it always comes back to do, when the kids sing that. So it's really great if you're trying to, establish students in a tonal center, because every single time they are going to sing on do. So there are sometimes when it goes so do, low so to do, or it goes up above do and comes down to do. But it's just great to sort of establish a tonic. So that's cool. You can do it a couple different ways. I learned yes ma'am. And I take the opportunity to talk with kids about ma'am because, in the states I've taught in, Kansas and Michigan and Missouri, ma'am is not a word that we use all that often. I know in the South it gets used a lot more often. But up in these other states that I've been in, we don't say it quite as often, or at a younger age don't. So it's nice to be able to have that conversation with kids about what the word ma'am is and who you'd use that with. And then for me personally, as a guy, I would say, well, if you were really singing this and you were really talking to me, would you say yes ma'am? They'd say no. It'd say yes sir, whatever. That's also fun for those younger kids to help them distinguish gender and how you would respond. Some pronouns are different for different people, or some responses are different for different people, and that's a fun little conversation to have, which I would probably have later on in the lesson once they've been singing it. That's not something I would do like the very first time, but I would have students sing the response, and we'd go do it a couple different times, and I'd make sure that they understand when they come in. There are a lot of opportunities. I think if you sing through it the way I did it, there are 10 different times that kids can say yes ma'am just in one run through of the song. So it gives them a lot of repetition, especially for those younger people. That's very important to have that chance at repetition. So you can change this. If you don't want to do yes ma'am, that's okay. I've heard people who do, oh, John the Rabbit, oh, yes. That's okay. I mean, it's just a different way to do it. I like yes, ma'am, but oh, yes, or yes, sir, or oh, sure. I mean, you could have them say whatever you wanted, really, as long as it fits in with the content of the song. So it really doesn't matter how, what kids say, but just as long as they understand it's sort of a call and a response. So I would say something, they would say something. So the first time doing it, I would sing it as an example, and I'd sing all the parts. And then I might say something like, did you hear a part that repeats? And they'd say, oh, it's a yes, ma'am. Could you sing that? There's just so much to sing and so many different words. It would really help me out if you would sing that part, if you could do that. And so maybe the first time through, if we're having difficulty or something, I might have them sing, and then, if they're having trouble matching pitch or it's confusing or whatever, you can always like grab a glockenspiel and you can play the note when they play it. So, because that does a couple things. First, they know exactly when they're supposed to go because they see you playing. It also helps them sort of get the pitch that they're supposed to play. Also, if later you want them to play a glockenspiel or a barred instrument, it sets them up for that. So I've done that a couple times. That's worked great. Sometimes I don't need to. Sometimes I don't think about it. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you as the teacher. But I have them sing. I sing, they sing, I sing, they sing. They sing their part. That's pretty quick and easy to do. That's what I would do the first time. And then I might say something like, you know what? Or we might even do it a couple times. I might say, you know what? I think that John might do something else. Listen and see if you can figure out when you're supposed to sing. And then I might sing a different version of the lyrics to the students. So I could do, oh, John the rabbit, yes, ma'am. Got a mighty habit, yes, ma'am. Jumping up in the morning, yes, ma'am. Putting on his clothes, yes, ma'am. His socks and shoes, yes, ma'am. His shirts and pants, yes, ma'am. And if he's ready, yes, ma'am. By 8:30, yes, ma'am. He can go to school, yes, ma'am. And he won't be late, yes, ma'am. I mean, that's a version that I have written down that I could do. You could do anything with this. You could do John the Rabbit had a mighty habit getting in my garbage, throwing out my newspaper. I mean, you could do that. You could say, jumping in my classroom, yes, ma'am. Playing with the instruments, yes, ma'am. Playing, you could do anything depending on where you want to go next. So if you were going to, get into instruments and do like rhythm sticks, okay, well then getting in my instruments, yes, ma'am. Playing with the rhythm sticks, yes. I mean, it's a great way to segue to the next activity if you want. Or you could just, get into improvisation. You could talk about how I'm just going to come up with something new. What could we do? You could take ideas from students. You could say, where could John the Rabbit go next? Maybe they say the art room. Okay, well then you as the teacher can improvise. John the Rabbit, yes, ma'am. Had a mighty habit, yes, ma'am. Getting in the art room, yes, ma'am. Playing with the watercolors, yes. I mean, you can go anywhere with this, and it's nice that students can then see you sort of improvise and see you come up with new things. They think it's magic. Like anytime I sing something new about what they're doing or with their ideas, they're like, oh my gosh, he is the best musician in the whole wide world. So that's fun to do with students. Another thing you could do in another lesson or later in the lesson, you could have students, like I said, you could have them play the xylophone. You could have them play a pitched instrument on the yes, ma'am. Some students could play, some students could sing. That's something that's easy to do. Another fun thing is that if you have them sitting like in a circle, you could sing and you could go around and you could have each student sing on their own. Well, at first I might say, I'm just going to walk around, and as you're singing, I'm just going to listen to you each individually, but everybody sing together. So they're all singing as a group, and you could lean over and listen to one student. That way you could, you could assess them as you're going through if you wanted. Then the next step might say like, okay, if I lean over, you sing a solo by yourself, and you get to be the person singing yes, ma'am. It's nice for a song like this, if they've done it a couple times, almost everyone is probably confident enough that they know, because there's not like it's not like the word changes. They're singing the same response to you every single time. So that brings down the anxiety for them, because it's not like they're coming up with something new. They're just repeating that same thing they've been doing over and over. But you could have students do this as a solo, which is so great, because then they're singing sort of their solo thing. You could improvise, words as you're going around the circle so that it gets through all of the students at once, or you could do a couple times through this main version, or through the garden or whatever, so that then you could have them do it a couple times. I mean, it's totally up to you how you would want to make that happen, but that's sort of a nice thing you could do. You could also talk about this gives you a great segue again into content that they may be involved with in class. If you talk about what it is he's eating and why he eats that, you could talk about how a rabbit is an herbivore, or you could talk about, whether some people think rabbits are pets and some of them think they're pests. Which do you think John is? Is he a pet or is a pest? Because he's getting in the garden and it's a fun conversation to have with kids. It gets them thinking about it. And then later on, I do a lot of Easter activities based around rabbits. And a lot of times they're mischievous. I mean, if you've listened to any of my podcasts or any of my blog, you know that I personally am a little bit mischievous. And so I love to have these characters that come into the classroom to be mischievous. And so it's fun to set that up with this song. Okay, so that's a lot of things you can do with the song. I also bring in my Folkmanis. I think on the website, I think it's called like a Dutch rabbit. But it's this floppy-eared rabbit that I have. So sorry, if you're on Amazon, you could look up the Dutch rabbit and then Folkmanis, Folkmanis puppet, and it'll show you the puppet that I use. But I think that puppet is just so fun, and you could have, as you're introducing it, you could sing and then John could repeat or John could bounce when the students sing. I mean, that's a fun little thing that you could bring in. But really, you could do that or not. It doesn't affect how the song works. It's just a fun thing to bring in if you want. One other thing I would say is that when I was at this Kodály workshop last week, they were talking about keys and key signatures and what are good keys to sing in. This is a nice one for students because it's in F major, and so, really it's a pentaton, I think, if I look through, but it's nice because it's in F, and the tone that they're singing over and over is F, which is right in their vocal range, especially for young kids. And so you could either do this in F or maybe in G if you're doing it with instruments and you wanted to do some sort of accompaniment or give them an exploratory moment. It's nice to be able to set this in F pentatonic. It's an easy one to do. So if you wanted to do more with the instruments, you could do, where the students play F, on John the Rabbit. And then after you've sung through once, you could give them a beat and you could let them explore F pentatonic. There's a lot that you can do with that. So John the Rabbit is an easy song, and it's fun for kids. You can do, just the song, or you could do one of the 18 things that I just mentioned as like an extension activity. This is a great song to start with and then jump off to something different. Like I said, we're coming into the time of year where if you look on Teachers Pay Teachers or look through your textbook series or look through the resources you probably already have, there are a lot of games and songs and reinforcing activities you can do that have rabbits involved. So this, just thematically is a really great one to do now. It's also really great if you want to venture into more call and response, or you want to do more chances for students to sing on their own. This is a great, very low stress way to do that with students. Another thing that you might think, there are a lot of other really fun bunny songs or rabbit songs. The one that I do sometimes is Mr. Rabbit, your ears are mighty long. That's a super cute little song, and that's another great one to do. But, if you look, again, through your books or if you look online, there are just a ton of rabbit songs that you could do. You could venture into Barnyard Animals. This, like I said, this is just a great song to start, and it's a great place for you to start somewhere and go anywhere. I love these little songs like this that connect to anything I want to connect them to, because sometimes I'll be planning my lesson, I'll be like, man, well, we really need to do this, rhythm activity, or we need to do this note value activity, and we need to do the singing, but how do I connect them? Okay, great. Here's this perfect song that connects that maybe they don't really connect, but I could make this connection thematically, or I could make this connection with a little rhythm element that I pull out of the song. I love songs where I can do that, and this is a great, great song for that. Well, John the Rabbit is a great song to use in a lot of different places, but there are just so many fun songs that are out there that can be used so well. I feel like sometimes as teachers, we just rely upon the things that we know or the things that we have seen used before. I'll admit I do that. And I would encourage you to try not to do that. See if there are other resources or songs that you could find that are great. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you are currently doing that. You are looking for new material. So that's awesome. Let me suggest a couple other places where you could find great lessons, great songs that you could use. First of all, I would say if you have local ORF chapters or Kodály chapters or Feierabend chapters or whatever, go get involved, because those people love to share lessons. They love to talk about music. We're getting to the time of year where people are starting to get burned out on teaching. And so workshops are a great place to go and talk with people about what's working or what's not, or struggles you've had. And, you know, when you're the only music teacher in the building, it is easy to feel like you're an island. So go and connect with other educators. That's where I would start. And I also say this because I am the president of the Mid-Michigan Orff Schulwerk Association, and we are planning a chapter share coming up in a few days. And I know that this is the time of year where other chapters in March and April across the country are planning more workshops, and we're getting into spring workshop season. So search in your area and see if you can find an Orff chapter or a Kodály chapter or something. See if they have a workshop coming up, because chances are they probably are planning a workshop in the next couple weeks. Another great thing that you could check out on the blog, the collaborative blog that I blog on sometimes, which is singteachlove.com. There are a lot of really great resources, and Aileen Miracle, who's a fantastic music teacher, I've talked several times on this podcast about her awesome podcast. She recently shared a blog post about music education resources that she loves. There are some fantastic books on there if you need some inspiration about these are great songs, but where can I find them? Well, she's listed probably 8 or 9 or 10 great books that you could check out. And you can find pretty cheap. You can find them on Amazon or eBay or whatever. And you know that if Aileen likes these books, they are probably amazing. So Sing, Teach, Love, it's the most recent blog post. I think she posted it on March 13th, and you can check that out. There's some great examples there. All right, folks, before I go, I just wanted to tell you that I'm going to post some links to resources you might like in the show notes. I created a favorite folk song set for this song that maybe you'd like to look through. I'll also put some links to the Paper Snowball blog post and to the bunny rabbit puppet that I use, just so you can sort of see the resources I use. Check those out in your show notes. Hope you have a great week.